Welcome to this special mindfulness session for the staff in the Northern Ireland Civil Service for World Mental Health Day. No matter what your job role is, be it site-based, technical work, public-facing or office-based, everyone at all levels across the civil service workforce can benefit from taking time out to learn new skills to help manage stress, anxiety and deal with your busy working lives. Welcome, my name's Frank. I'm Inspire's lead mindfulness practitioner. I normally describe myself as my name is Frank and I'm a recovering thinker. And throughout the video you'll find out why I'm saying I'm a recovering thinker. Sometimes, as we know, one thought is too many and 1,000 is not enough. What I've discovered through mindfulness practice is that those flooding thoughts, those racing thoughts, can slow right down through mindfulness practice. The daddy of mindfulness practice is the great Jon Kabat-Zinn, and way back around the mid-70s, 74, 75, what Kabat-Zinn said about mindfulness practice was, he said, it's a particular way of paying attention to what's happening right here, right now, in a non-judgmental way. A particular way of paying attention to what's happening right here, right now, in a non-judgmental way. I myself, over the years, I've been practicing now for some 35 years, I myself would describe mindfulness practice as vu-ja-de. Vu-ja-de, just take a moment to think, what does that mean? We've all heard of déjà vu. Yes, déjà vu, know that sense where we've been here before? So we take déjà vu and we turn it on its head, vu-ja-de. We haven't been here before. This is what's called the beginner's mind. Through mindfulness practice, what we discover is beginner's mind. To experience this moment for the first time, without time travelling off to the future or ruminating about the past. Through practice, we're able to bring the mind home, to be right here, right now, to experience this moment for the first time. Through practice, we discover that thoughts are thoughts, they're not the mind. Clouds are clouds, they're not the sky. Go up on a plane through the clouds, you've got a clear blue sky. Through mindfulness practice, what happens is we discover that we're not our thoughts. Thoughts arise and then they fade away. Easier said than done, I hear you say. But to be honest, there's not a simpler practice on the planet today. And the good news is that through the NICE guidelines, that's the National Institute for Clinical Excellence, what we've discovered is that mindfulness practice covers a host of difficulties that we can experience. What we now know is through mindfulness practice, here in Inspire, is that mindfulness works on what's called the autonomic nervous system. And the autonomic nervous system would be the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. So you can imagine two pedals. The sympathetic bees, up goes my antennae through the roof, into what's called the fight, the flight, the freeze, the police experience. And the parasympathetic is being able to bring the antennae down and to go into what's called rest and digest, to be into that sort of gut feeling. So what happens is, if I was out on the street and there was a big dog growling at me, can I fight it? No. Can I run? Yes. So what happens is within the body, cortisol, adrenaline is released, up goes the antennae into the fight, the flight, the freeze and the police. So off I run. I become Jack the Lad from Belfast and I outrun the dog. But now that I've outrun the dog, rather than bringing the antennae down, what seems to happen is we become addicted to that stress, to that adrenaline, to that cortisol, and I want to keep that up. And sorry to say, but after a period of time, we begin then to run on empty. Now, if you were to say to me, Frankie, you need to take your foot off that pedal and apply that pedal, go from the sympathetic to the parasympathetic, the internal voice within me would say, if I take my foot off that pedal, I'll fall apart. The good news is through mindfulness practice, we just shift from this pedal to this pedal. That's the good news. So how do we do this? I would say that a simple practice, which we'll do at the end of this program, a simple practice, a daily practice, will bring about what's called the firing of the neurons. So what happens through mindfulness practice, we now know through the neuroplasticity of the brain, is what happens is when we practice, the neurons, they fire and rewire, they fire and rewire, and then in doing so, what happens is new pathways emerge. I would liken it to, if you could imagine, a snow globe all shook up, and we can't see a thing. And then we set the snow globe down on the floor, and the snow falls to the bottom. and things become a lot clearer. Through mindfulness practice, what happens is we come to our senses, and in doing so, we see things differently, hear things differently, smell, touch, and taste things differently. We start then to bring the mind home. Sight, sound, smell, touch, taste, but most of all, we get into the gut. Yeah? You know that gut feeling? Some people call it the second brain. That gut feeling where, you get that gut feeling that you know what to do and you know how to do it. So through mindfulness practice, what people discover is that, if you can imagine that this would describe as the handy model of the brain. Here we have the lower brain and the upper brain. If there's a war between the lower brain and the lower brain would win. But what we now know through mindfulness practice is that the more we practice, the cortex becomes denser and denser and denser, and in doing so, we don't flip the lid. What we now know through neuroscience is that these two guys here, the amygdala, which is Greek for almond, about the size of an almond, what happens is the amygdala begins to shrink. I would liken that to the antennae. You know that fight, flight, freeze, please I was talking about? Yes, so what happens is, through mindfulness practice, the amygdala begins to shrink. Now, that's not to say that we're going to be stress-free, because we need a certain amount of stress in our lives. But we don't become addicted to stress. So if you can imagine, two guys in a car, mindfulness practitioner, non-practitioner, and we're driving along. And guess what? A car cuts out in front of us. Both of us will flip the lid. Yes? But this guy here, the practitioner, will recover faster, whereas this guy here will tend then to perseverate. This could have happened, that could have happened, and so on and so forth. Yes? So then through practice, what happens is we now know is that mindfulness practice breeds resilience. So we become more resilient and more resourceful. And what we actually find is that there's more right with us than wrong with us. So it's about our attention. Where is our attention? Where is my attention right here, right now? Am I present, or am I traveling off into the future, or ruminating about the past? Through practice, we're then able to bring the mind home, to join the dots. And then, in joining the dots, we begin then to what is described by some groups as the art of falling awake. We then start to wake up. The art of falling awake. Mindfulness practice, I would say, would be to be awake, to be aware, to be alert, to be alive, but most of all, about being authentic. And what we find through mindfulness practice is, if you can imagine that mindfulness was a flower, yeah. So if mindfulness is a flower, compassion is the fragrance. So through mindfulness practice, we're actually befriending ourselves. I can tell you now, if I was walking down Royal Avenue and someone was walking behind me, telling me the things that I tell me, I'd phone for the police and get them lifted. What we discovered through practice is that internal dialogue changes from a harsh, critical saboteur into a softer, kinder, more compassionate voice. What actually happens is Frankie meets Frankie. And in doing so, Frankie's able to accept Frankie for who Frankie is. There's a great poet called Derek Walcott, and he wrote a fantastic poem. And if you don't mind, I'd like to read this to you. And it goes like this. The time will come when, with elation, you will greet yourself arriving at your own door in your own mirror, and each will smile at others' welcome and say, sit here and eat. You will love again the stranger who was yourself, give wine, give bread, give back your heart to itself, to the stranger who has loved you all your life, whom you ignored for another, who knows you by heart. Take down the love letters on the bookshelf, the photographs, the desperate notes. Peel your own image from the mirror. Sit and feast on your life. Walcott says, the time will come when with elation, you will greet yourself around at your own door in your own mirror, and each will smile, not frown, but smile at the other's welcome and say, sit here and eat. You will love again the stranger who was yourself, give back your heart to itself, to the stranger who has loved you all your life, whom you ignored for another. Take down the love letters on the bookshelf, the photographs, the desperate notes. Peel your own image from the mirror. Sit and feast on your life. Mindfulness practice, I would say, is exactly what Walcott refers to. Being able to sit and feast on our lives. Now I'd like to introduce you to a short exercise. One that can help us join the dots. Yes? And to bring us into this moment. So just follow me, please. And what I'd like you to do is, I'd like you to rest your hands on the knees, yes? And as you breathe out, allow your hands to open. So breathing out like so, and breathing in like so. Breathing out like so, and breathing in like so. Breathing out like so, and breathing in like so. So let's continue for a few moments. Breathing out, breathing in, breathing out, breathing in. Thank you very much for taking the time to watch this video, and I wish you all a very happy day. Thank you.